What's up, everybody? My name is Sparkles McGlitterbuns, and right now I'm going to explain how Disney's movie Moana was narratively structured so that you can learn to write movies like that yourself. If you watched my last StoryShock video, you'll know that successful movies all share the same story progression or narrative spine, including a beginning, middle, and an end, as well as a false goal and a true goal that are inspired by the protagonist's fatal flaw and noble virtue, respectively. So not only am I going to explain those and Moana's tentpoles or major story points, but we're going to do it super quick. Here we go! Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Moana yet, it is a masterpiece for our age, and we're gonna spoil the heck out of it in 3, 2, 1. Moana's protagonist or central character is Moana herself, and her homeworld, the place she's from, is the island of Moto Nui, but she's stagnating there like a fish in a too small pond and needs to travel into the magical world of the ocean beyond the reef in order to trade out her fatal flaw for a noble virtue. And if you didn't watch my last video, you naughty moose, the fatal flaw is the characteristic or quality internal to the protagonist that's, unbeknownst to them, ruining their life and gonna kill them, whereas the noble virtue is what they need to fix whatever's dragging them closer to death. So what's Moana missing? She's a pretty good kid and does what she's told. Sure, she wants to go beyond the reef, but basically anytime she's told to stay away from the ocean, she does. She's too integrated with her home community and needs to find her freedom in the magical world, again, the ocean beyond the reef, so her fatal flaw is her obedience, and she needs to experience adolescent rebellion and become independent, her noble virtue, making her own decisions and seeing them through like a true wayfinder. Moana's false goal then, or the thing she leaves her homeland for because she wants it, is to get Maui to return to Fiti's heart, but her true goal, the thing she needs, is to return the heart her dang self. Maui's a trickster, he's flawed, and he doesn't understand the heart's value, otherwise he wouldn't have stolen it to begin with, so it has to be Moana, a person who knows what the heart's really worth, that gives it back. To the tentpoles! The hook is the first few minutes of a story when you really hook the audience in. Here it's the origin story of Te Fiti, Maui, and Te Kā, which almost but not quite gives away the big twist ending, so the clue is here, the audience should figure it out along the way. Hopefully. We don't always need to meet our protagonist in the hook because this is all about setting up the legacy Moana's inheriting, but since we don't meet her here, it has to be in the homeworld, which is the movie's first 10 minutes or so. Physically, Moana's homeworld is the island of Moto Nui itself, and though Moana may be a tui one, look at those cheeks, her impulse to protect those less fortunate than her by saving the cat, or sea turtle, is why the sea brings her the heart of Te Fiti. The act of saving what is essentially a piece of the magical world leads to that world, the sea itself, anointing her as the hero by entrusting her with the tool of humanity's salvation. But then comes foreshadowing, which is a smaller conflict that's a warning shot for the big trouble ahead. Whenever you meet a protagonist, you have to see their fatal flaw in action, so here we get the picture that Moana's really caving to her dad's wishes about not going toward the ocean, and we see that as Jango Fett explains to Moana that she's her people's future, Pops McBounty Hunter sings about tradition being their mission, gotta hold the course, blah blah, even as Gramma Tala's water-weaving ways can't save Moana just yet. Tradition will not save Moana's people from the coconut blight and lack of fish, her independent decision-making will. So then comes the inciting incident, or where the protagonist runs into a new force or person who knocks them onto the path that'll lead to the false goal. Moana tries to cross the reef alone, but she's too inexperienced and can't do it, so as soon as she gets back to shore, she runs into Gramma Tala, who's one with the rays, meaning she is already part of the magical world and her tattoo proves it. We know from that she's a mentor and can walk between two worlds, even if everyone else thinks she's crazy, part of being the character of the fool. This encounter leads Gramma Tala to take Moana to the hidden cave where she finds the proto-magical world, which is basically like a mini version of the magical world. This is where Moana finds out the truth about her own heritage, and by the time Gramma Tala gets all stick-droppy, Moana's ready to break orbit and finally cross the threshold with the help of her two female forebears, Mom with the snacks and Gramma Tala with the giant glowing manta rayness. Again though, Moana is still being obedient. She's doing the right thing, but for the wrong reason. From here she just could have sailed straight to Te Fiti and given the heart back, but she doesn't know the truth, either about the stone or herself, so she thinks, incorrectly per Gram's advice, she needs Maui's help to do it. Moana isn't properly attuned or oriented to see the truth yet, but she'll get closer in the switchback, where the stakes get higher and the protagonist gets bumped in a new direction. Moana washes up on Maui's island. Notice that she tries to blame the sea for not helping her, as everyone else is doing, and enabling her childishness, but it doesn't let her because it, the magical world itself, wants her to become independent, which is what she needs. Maui's himself powerless after his great and mighty naughtiness and needs his hook back, so Moana again lets herself get dragged off course because someone in a position of power said so. During the midpoint, Moana actually rebels against Maui for a hot minute when she goes back for perpetual stoneholder Hei, and this actually earns her some respect in his eyes, to the point where he'll begrudgingly teach her wave finding. Capturing a god and forcing them to reveal some great secret is the mythic sign of a mighty hero, but she only emerges from this midpoint showdown unscathed because the enemy was so tiny and twee, hollow coconuts of her own fear. The Chimera is where things seem perfect but are really about to hit the fan, so this is where Moana and Maui descend into the monster realm of Lalotai. Things should go well for them down here because Maui's about to get his hook back and do the hard work of restoring Te Fiti's heart, but instead he's unable to use his powers, mirroring the point that Moana can't rely on him to do her job for her. Still, this seems to be only a minor setback, so Moana and Maui sail on to confront Te Kā, but this is doing things Maui's way, the way of conflict, so of course it isn't going to work. And that leads to death. Not immediately, but certainly the death of Moana's hope as Maui abandons her. By the time she gives the ocean back to Fiti's heart, she's out of wind, out of hope, and out of help. She's done for, and Moto Nui's doomed because she listened to other people and didn't decide how to confront Taka on her own terms. We know Moana's judgment is good. We saw that back at the beginning. She just needs to believe in herself, which she finally learns to do during the resurrection song I Am Moana, and she reclaims the heart of Te Fiti, now knowing that she has the power to achieve her own destiny. She will confront Taka herself, which she does during the 0 hour. Not the battle, that's all just smoke and mirrors. It's the moment when Moana realizes who Taka is and realizes that she can't be defeated, she has to be reconciled with. Only Moana's had the compassion all along to see the truth, and only she has the insight and independence necessary to do what seems impossible and see goodness in what seems like a monster. Maui gets a new hook now that he understands responsibility, and Moana's rewarded with a trip home so she can begin the work of saving her people, not waiting for divine intervention. And Jermaine Clement, we love you exactly as you are. Made it! So Moana followed the standard Hollywood length for an animated movie, which is about 90 minutes or an hour and a half. And if you'll notice, it was off a little bit at the end, and that's for a couple different reasons. First of all, Moana's 96 minutes long, not exactly 90, so of course the tentpoles are going to be off by just a couple minutes. Also, tentpoles like death and resurrection were pushed back in order to draw out the emotion, as is often done in musicals. This also makes up for the sort of lesser battle at the midpoint by hammering down with a real whammy of justice at death. You've also probably noticed that the tentpoles are mostly clustered towards the beginning of the story in Act 1, and that's no mistake. Whether you're talking about a movie that's 90 minutes long or a 120-minute long movie, which are both Hollywood standard, both of the first acts are going to be 30 minutes long. As an audience, we're really interested in seeing how and why the protagonist breaks out of their homeworld so that we can understand how to do that ourselves when those opportunities come along. Acts 2 and 3 will be a little bit different if you're talking about a 120-minute movie, but the tentpoles are still proportionately placed throughout it. If you like this video, don't forget to share it. Throw any questions or suggestions down in the comments field, and I will try to tackle them just as quickly as I can.
Tackle them with my little claws.
Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Bye!